Say It Loud Network and Mino Lion Media presents Business First.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Business First with Sonia Aline. I am your host, and this is the podcast where we help businesses become bigger, better, and bolder in their dreams. I wanted to share some thoughts with you before we introduced our next guest. And I'd like to say, if you ever feel confused about your purpose in life or your goals in life, I'd like to think that the universe isn't. So even if we are a little unsure or we're a little cautious about where we're supposed to be going, the universe always knows. And it's amazing that, some of us absolutely come out, and from birth, we know exactly what we're going to do, and we're dedicated to that path, and we achieve it. And then there are others of us who get maybe a little sidetracked, or we go off into other directions. But what's always fascinating to me is that we always have the tools, we're always given the tools, we're always put in situations that serve us perfectly for when we have to show up and actually perform. And our guest today is going to be able to talk about that and share her experience with you. And I think you're going to take a lot away from it. So before I introduce her to you all, I want to give you a little bit about her background. And her name is Kyiesha Kelly, who is the co-founder and CEO of hiphopcloset.com. It's one of the first e-commerce sites dedicated to hip hop culture. The site offers a wide variety of merchandise, from clothes and books to jewelry and specialty items. Hip Hop Closet has also facilitated wardrobe for movies, photo shoots, and television productions. The business has also been recognized by numerous media outlets, including VH1, awarding the business Best E-commerce Site for Hip Hop. In 2019, Kyiesha was recognized as Entrepreneur of the Year by Canva. Kyiesha is Brooklyn born and bred and is a Howard alum, just like our newly elected vice president, with a degree in civil engineering. So she's also very smart, like our current vice president. And so without further ado, and so you can hear more of her story in her own words, welcome, Kyiesha. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. That was absolutely beautiful. I love that introduction.
all the information provided by you. This is all you. I'm so impressed with you and the fact that you were a civil engineer. I'm always impressed with anyone who's done work in the sciences, because I was so not that kid in school. I was always pushed to science. And, there still is a time where we're pushing our girls to be more inclined to do science and math. And I ran as far away from those subjects as I possibly could. So, but were you math inclined, science inclined? What made you choose civil engineering?
It's really interesting because I went to Brooklyn Tech, and in Brooklyn Tech, they have majors, and I chose an architecture major because my dad was a civil, and he was a city planner for urban development, and he worked for the city, and I thought it was interesting and cool, and he also told me that if you go into architecture, engineering, any of those things, you'll always have a job. And so, I always wanted money. So I'm like, okay, let me go. Let me go do it. So I did architecture, but I found out really quickly that it was just too tedious for me. And I just couldn't do it. So when I got to Howard, the next best thing, literally the building next door, was engineering. So I literally just said, I want to do engineering. Let me go over there and see. Because it never occurred to me to go to the School of Business at Howard. I don't know why, but something about creating really appealed to me. And I felt that in engineering, it's all about just creating and just figuring stuff out. And that always has appealed to me.
Wow. And so you knew that before you started? Because I think as a freshman, I would have thought, okay, so the creative side of me would have wanted to go to business. But you're saying and we never think about engineers as being creative. But you saw that. You saw that there was an opportunity to be more creative as an engineer.
Yeah, because I literally saw my father develop the infrastructure for cities. We lived in a bunch of different cities and countries. We lived in Africa for a year, and he did urban development over there. And so I could see how engineering was actually creating the infrastructure of a wide variety of things. So that's why it appealed to me.
And so you make another good point. It's why it's so important for us to have examples and role models,
Yes.
because then you really get to see how things are being implemented and how you can use certain either tools or expertise. And
Right.
so what was your expectation? You have this degree now, and you're going to do what?
It's so funny because probably 2 years into trying to get my degree, I realized I hated that. And but it was kind of one of those things like, I'm not going to start over. Like, let me just get this degree and see where I can go from there. But I knew early that I did not want to be an engineer. And it's really funny because I went to the career fair at Howard, and I'm walking around with my resume in tow, and I see these two women. Well, they really see me, and they're like, "Hey, you come over here." And so I go over to them, and they're like, "What's your major?" And I'm like, "Listen, I'm going to be really honest with you. It's engineering, but I don't want to do that." And so they said, "Well, perfect. You're the perfect person for us then." And it turned out that the job that they were recruiting me for was to build the infrastructure for the internet. So,
Wow.
yeah, so I had to go through this extensive 9-week training in order to learn like telephonese, so to speak. So I really didn't need to know like the engineering that I learned in school, because they were just going to retrain me. So basically, they just wanted a brain that was able to learn and think like creatively and analytically. So that's why engineering was perfect for them. And it was perfect for me because it was kind of like I was learning something different. I always want to learn something different. And I was basically like I was doing design work, but in a different sort of way. So, I mean, it worked out. That worked out. I passed the test, and they hired me, and I actually wound up moving to California. That's how I wound up in California.
Wow. And so you were with them for how long?
I was with them for 2.5 years because we started our business. I was only there for probably 6 months when my brother approached me. I came home for Christmas break, and he said, "Listen, the internet is really blowing up. The future of the internet will be e-commerce." And I'm like, "E-commerce? Like, what are you talking about?" I had no idea what he was talking about. And he said, "Yes, we should sell stuff online. We should sell clothing and accessories and, like hip hop, our stuff. We should sell that online." And so I was confused. Like, even though I was building the infrastructure for the internet, what I was more so doing was building out like cell phone internet. Because at that time, people could like purchase one line and break it up into like several lines and then sell that off. So I was like out in the field, like measuring like where to lay wires and cables. I'm in manholes, all of that stuff. But anyway, so he comes to me with this idea, and I say, "I don't even have a computer like at my house. Like, I had a computer at work, but I'm like, I don't even have a computer. Like, what are you talking about?" So he was like, "Well, you need to do some research. This is what we should do." So I go back to Cali, and I had very few friends. So I bought a computer, a Gateway. And I just started doing some research, and
What were you researching? Like, this is so brand new. So like today, I don't know what to research. What were you researching back then?
I would literally just Googling like e-commerce and the future of selling online and, just stuff like that, and what the stats were at that time. I can't remember exactly how many websites were out there, but I mean, probably something like 7,000. Like, it was very small amount of websites. And so they had enough like data from there, and then they had future projections. And so that's what really caught my eye. I said, "Oh, wow, like this is going to grow." And then I put 2 and 2 together with what I was actually doing, working, building out this infrastructure for the internet. And even at my job, they were telling me like, this is going to be much bigger than it is now. But at that time, technology wasn't in place to kind of do what we're doing now. So they were kind of piecemealing stuff almost, like, okay, just put this out there so that we can get the service now. And then they wound up replacing everything with, fiber optics and all of that stuff. But, so I did the research and I saw these projections, and that's when I was like, okay, you're onto something.
And so that was 6 months. You said that was like 6 months into your job. So how much?
Like 6 months into my job. Oh, I forgot the question. I'm sorry. So after I did the research, we launched probably 6 months after that. We launched in the summer of 98. So I moved out to Cali in 97. We launched in the summer of 98. And then by December of 99, I was on a plane moving back home to run the company full time.
Wow. So how long did it take you to actually set it up? Because again, this was all brand new. And so
the setup was actually relatively quick. The long part was doing the research and writing up a business plan, because we wanted to really have all our ducks in a row and really think it through and really have a good structure behind us before we started. So the easiest part, believe it or not, was signing up for a service to host the website and, getting an EIN number and all of that. That was like super quick and easy, because at that time there weren't a lot of options. When you're given a lot of options, that's what I feel like kind of stagnates a lot of people, because now you have to choose between, like 40 different web hosts, whereas we just went with Yahoo because they were big at that time. They were the huge search engine at that time. So we chose them, and it was really good because they were a search engine. They were able to list us really high for search engine optimization. And we came up very organically in a lot of searches. If you Googled anything on our site, we were number one. And also a lot of the brands and stuff that we had online didn't even have websites. So if people were looking for whatever it was, we would come right up. So that part was like really, really easy, because we didn't even have to have a marketing budget, nothing. It was like really spoiling though at the time, because in hindsight, I'm like, it was too easy.
It seems like it was really easy. But I also want to take you back just a little to what I talked about in the introduction. So what's fascinating with your story for me is how all of these things lined up. Like, you had no idea that you were going to be, one, a business owner, and then two, like doing e-commerce. But your engineering background, this job opportunity, which understood this new frontier as well. But then you also, when we spoke earlier, your brother also had this drive. So it was almost like this perfect community and this perfect setting to place you in this position.
Yeah, it really was. At the time, my brother had a barbershop too. He was running a barbershop. As I think back to like growing up and when we were younger, we started an airline company. That was our very first business. And it was living room. Right, yeah, we were just right in our living room. My brother was the CEO. I was a stewardess. And then we have another brother that's in between us. He was the pilot, and my parents were our only, guests. So I guess it was a private airline for them, you could say. And they flew private. And I remember, like, I still, like, I was helping my mom clean up, and I still found, like, we actually drew out like a booklet of like the airline, and like, we were like really sophisticated, and we were young. Like, I probably was like 5 at the time. I'm probably younger. Like, yeah.
Wow.
And I also remember my first entrepreneurial gig. I used to take in the Sunday comic strips, they used to have this how to draw section. And so I used to go in there and like practice how to draw. And one time, one of my mom's friends saw it, and she said, "Ooh, can she draw some like place cards for me?" So I like came up with like all of these place cards, and she paid me for it. I like drew out like maybe 50 place cards. Like, so I feel like when like an entrepreneur, you're really born with those like traits of just creation and coming up with something. I mean, we all inherently are here to create. Your mind has to be able to put on several different hats and also create at the same time, and not feel the pressure of that, and not cave under that pressure.
Yeah. So what was business like when you first started? So the setup was easy. how you were placed in terms of your marketing was perfectly set up. So what was it like when you actually got started?
So that's where the work came in. That's where it got hard because it's one thing to have, the structure and, the means to get something to the customer. But then there's a whole other like supply chain and actually having the product. That was like the really hard part because we had to convince people that you should allow us to sell your clothing online, or that, online is the new wave. Everybody's going to be doing e-commerce. Nobody wanted to hear that, especially clothing brands, because that, is so, it's kind of like proprietary information. And once you put that design out, now, a bunch of people can copy the design, so they were really afraid of that. But, in my mind, I was saying, listen, there's no way to avoid that. And this is the future. You have to do it. But I'm like a 21-year-old kid. I looked like I was 15 at that point, probably like no background in any of it. So that was where the challenge came in. And so many times we just heard no, 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 no. So what we did was we went to the stores. And we said, listen, the internet is out there. You have excess merchandise that maybe you can't sell. We'll set up online the merchandise and we'll handle the whole e-commerce side of things. And you just operate business as usual and just will give us a percentage of whatever the sales are. So we were essentially just their e-commerce provider, like we did everything where, we took the pictures, we uploaded them online, we shipped everything out, and we did the customer service. So they really didn't have to worry about anything. And this was excess merchandise that, they were trying to get rid of anyway. So it really worked out. And that's how we were able to actually get inventory. And a lot of our customers were outside of the New York City area. So what was new for them was, going out of style in New York. So it all just worked out that way. But it was hard to like kind of keep up with that inventory because we got shouted out on MTV. Well, like one random day I'm at work designing these cables and I come home to like a whole bunch of messages and emails and I'm like, oh my goodness. And so that's where it like got really hard, where we had to figure out how to now make sure that we had supply, that we had inventory.
And that's a real challenge for businesses because the goal always is to be big, right? You want to have these customers, but sometimes it can happen in the blink of an eye where you can be like, okay, we're building. And then someone says, oh no, this is the company you need to be checking out. And now you've got to be ready. And so what would you say the lessons were in that, in your being ready?
It's I'm not even sure, honestly. Because like you said, as a business, you want to stay as lean as possible. But at the same time, if you don't have product to sell, then you're not in business. So I guess like going forward after that, what we did was we started to put like messages on the website, here today, gone tomorrow, like if you want to order it, you hop on it. So we created like a real urgency behind the merchandise. So a lot of times, like even if it wasn't in the person's size, they would say, okay, just give it to me. I'll just take it. Cause I know like it's not going to be here tomorrow, cause it was stuff that was like really in high demand. So we just explained to the customer, like, listen, if you want it, you got to get it now. And it's not coming back. So like to fast forward to now, we do a lot of custom stuff. So we have the materials and so it's all made to order. So that keeps us lean. And at the same time, it also controls when things are sold out. So that's what like really helps. You have to just find that perfect balance of staying lean and having inventory on hand and create like a launch program. So like 2 weeks before you get merchandise in store, you kind of want to like gear your customers up for, listen, this is coming. But when it actually drops, they're excited to get it because they've been anticipating it for all this time.
So now, obviously, you're allowed to be. You're a lot more selective. You can afford to be a lot more selective. What was that process like? So you went from like almost begging people to see that this was an opportunity to now, like, so what was that process like? Of I've got to get clients however I get them. To now being selective and saying, I'd like this. I don't think I want that.
Right. And it's good that you said that, because for a long time, we were kind of at the mercy of whatever the store owner purchased. And, it got to a point where hip hop became so big and everybody wanted a piece of it. Everybody had their hands in the pot. And it became like watered down, and the clothes they became something that our customers didn't even want anymore. So it was really hard, to appeal to the customer, because of the limited supply that we had. So, I sat down one day and I said, we have to really take control of this and take this back and really analyze the stuff that we're putting on the website. And, is it something that we would use, that our friends would use, that we love, and if it's not, then we shouldn't put it on the site. Like if we don't see, and the good part about it is that my style and my brother's style, it's like, a little bit different. He's only 5 years older than me, but it's different. So we get like a nice, range of clothing styles, like there's skinny jeans, but then there's also nice loose baggy jeans, there's tight dresses, but then there's also nice loose dress. So we appeal to a lot of different people, but it's all in the same mind of being unique and standing out and having something different and presenting yourself in a way that really speaks to who you are.
And your advantage was you were in the culture. You were in Brooklyn. You were in New York City. In the midst of everything that was going on. So you actually had a sense of what could work and what couldn't, didn't you?
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I was my own customer, so that made it really, really easy to appeal, because I'm like, oh, I love it. I know somebody else will love it. And then I'm looking at my friends and family and what they're wearing. And so, and the streets of New York, everything is out there.
So then how did you choose who you were going to work with? So did you start working with designers individually, which you could go back to now, or were you still working with the major merchandisers?
Yeah, we started working directly with designers. As they started to open up and form, alliances with other online businesses to expand their reach and stuff, we just started working directly with designers, and that really helped out.
What was it like working with your brother? So, working with a sibling, like, what has that been like?
It's not easy. I'm not going to lie. It is not easy. And I mean, he has probably gotten fired like 100 times, but he always comes back. And now his son works with us now. I'm more so in the office with his son every day. It's his son and myself that are really running things every day. And then he's not in the office that much. But it has been a learning curve. And, everybody just gets more mature as you go along. And you realize, like, okay, he's not going anywhere. So let's figure out how to work together. Like, and really just like recognizing and appreciating everybody's strengths and weaknesses and figuring out how to work together.
Right. Are they operational differences most of the time, or creative differences?
A little bit of both. It's a little bit of both. Like, I mean, honestly, like, I feel like a lot, like, we're opposites in a lot of ways, but our drive and our creative vision and just the ability to move forward and see things on a grander scale, that is the same. So like our core values are the same, but the way we might go about getting someplace is different, which is good, which is something you definitely want in a partnership, so that, where you fall short, they can pick up, and vice versa.
So what's interesting too is you all settled in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, which is a landmark here in New York City for those who don't know. And again, you were one of the first businesses in there. You were doing e-commerce, so it was just kind of like a functional site for you. But what you recently did is, so when most businesses are going from brick and mortar to e-commerce, you went from e-commerce to you transitioned into a brick and mortar.
Yeah.
What was the thinking behind that?
It got to a point where the internet just turned into the wild, wild west. And, you just people didn't know what they were going to get on the internet. People were stealing our photos and putting them on, like wish.com and, all of these eBay and, selling like what is $1,000 coat. They would say it's $50. And of course, you're not going to get that.
Right.
So it was getting to the point, it was getting hard to like convince our customers and get new customers and have them realize that we are real. You will get what it is you see. So we said, we really need a showroom where people are able to come. And even if they're not able to come, they know that they could come if they wanted to come. So we said, let's have a showroom, not a typical store, but a showroom that people can come and try on the merchandise and touch and feel the merchandise and really experience the brand and get to know who they're purchasing from. And in line with doing that, our space is also an event space. So before COVID, we would have tons of different events in here. I mean, everything from karaoke night to marketing workshops for small businesses, like anything that we felt was interesting to us, we would present that to our clientele and to our customer base and to our friends and family. And so we would have these events in here where you can experience something and also purchase merchandise and shop. So that's what we were doing pre-COVID. And it was working out really, really good. We were having a great time in here. And then COVID. And so we said, we can't do that anymore. But the beautiful thing is that we had such a firm imprint online that people, we didn't have to think about how to sell online because that was what we were doing for 20 years, literally. So we just were able to, say, hey, look, it's online, shop. Now people are super comfortable online. So
right.
It worked out really well that way.
What led to your decision to expand? Because you sell a lot more than clothing now.
Yeah, well, I mean, from the beginning, we always pretty much had a large variety of stuff. We sold magazines, we sold like mixtapes and independent people's albums and stuff. So we sold music. We sold a lot of different things, but now it's we're a lifestyle brand, so we kind of wanted to just offer anything like that's related to hip hop and being unique and individual and expressing yourself, because like that's what hip hop is at its core. It's not really this trendy thing that people think it is. It's really just a avenue of expression, unapologetic expression.
So what is it that you think that has, because there was a part where you mentioned, or earlier you mentioned that, once hip hop became really big, then there were a lot of players in the game. And one of the things that I think is unique about you is that you only use, all your products are made in New York. Are there other things that you thought that would really kind of define your space or define who you are in the space that have made a difference?
Not everything is made in New York, just the main things. So right, the sheepskins, the shearlings, those are all custom made. The shirts, all of that stuff is custom made, and we actually do the shirts right here. What makes us really unique is that we really cater to the customer. So we do a lot of like private shopping. So a customer will call us and say, I've really been looking for such and such, and I really like this. Can you get it or can you find it? So we'll go out and we'll utilize all of our resources to actually find that for the customer. So that's what I feel like that's what makes us really unique. But like, we're really in touch with our customer. I mean, I'm still answering the phone myself because I want to talk to the customer and I want to know, like, what are they looking for? What do you need? How can we help you? How can we serve you? and get you into something great that's going to make you walk out the door like feeling, like, hey.
And I think that's important. Can you talk about what it's like to really be in touch with the customer? I mean, I've talked to other business people over the years that say that you can tell, like, when you first start your business, most people are very involved because there's, they don't have anybody else doing the work. But sometimes, the bigger you grow, the more people you have, you step away from that customer experience, and it does make a difference, doesn't it?
It really does. It really does. A lot of the decisions I make are for the customer. And, it's one thing to make a decision like, for myself, and I know what it is, but it's another thing to actually like collaborate with the customer and, really speak to them, and they can tell me like what colors they're looking for and what styles, what style they're looking for, what brands. Like sometimes there's a brand that might have just come out that's like really hot, makes really good clothing, but it's not on my radar. So it's important to like really talk to the customer because they're educated. They can really tell you what's out there, give you a lot of good information.
I'd like to talk a little bit more too about who you were as an individual, as a student, as a person in corporate America. And again, how all of those tools worked for you, like the things that have come up for you in business and you recognize, that was part of my journey. This was who I was, or I'm glad I had that training. And you talked about some of that, but if you could explain a little bit more.
I think the most important thing I would say is being able to go back to the drawing board and not feel defeated. You're going to make mistakes, and there's going to be times when you wish that you really didn't do something. But you have to keep going, and you have to understand that that's what this journey is all about. Just being able to go back to the drawing board, re-engineer it, try it out a different way, and not feel like you failed. Like get whatever lesson, really recognize that there's a lesson in every single step you make, and really take that lesson into re-engineering your next move. So that's why, like, when COVID hit, it was, when the pandemic hit, it really wasn't that hard for me to pivot. Besides the fact that we're still a very small business. So small businesses generally have that agility to them where they're able to, pivot into a totally different market if need be. I feel like engineering really helped me do that because something will look great on paper, but then when you take it out into the field and you actually start trying to do it, I've gotten so many calls where the people out in the field, they're like, listen, Kyiesha, this is not on the paper. Like, you put it on the paper, but it's not out here. What do I do now? And so you have to like really think quickly and, go back to the drawing board and like say, okay, well, use this and go this way and do that. And you have to make these decisions fast. So I think that's what my engineering training really helped me to do in business.
And it sounds like you're a good listener as well. Like, listen, it sounds like you can listen without the ego, which can be difficult for a lot of us.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like that just came with age. I mean, if you ask my brother, he would probably say that's a total lie. That's like, that's totally not true. But I feel like I'm doing a lot better, like just like listening to everybody and not reacting. And yeah, it's a journey though, because sometimes you really want stuff to work out. You really want it to work. And it's important to not like try to force that square into the hole.
You said something really interesting. You were saying that in these times, small businesses have the ability to pivot, which is great. And I think would be encouraging for so many people who are listening, because the narrative around small businesses during this time is that they're the ones that are doomed. Like, they're the ones who are struggling. They're the ones who can't make it. And so just talk a little bit more about this attitude you have about the advantage of being a small business in these challenging times.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that you have to realize and understand is that no one can tell you that you can't make it or that you can't, so all of that they're saying, like, you can't internalize that, like they'll have you feeling super defeated. And while it is not easy at all, there's always a way, there's always something that you can do. And as long as the lights are still on, and even if they're not, light a candle, figure it out. But you have to like I was reading this story about a woman in LA, and she had a clothing business, and they shut down all the clothing businesses, but they said that florists couldn't stay open. So she went to the terminal market and bought a bunch of plants and flowers and stuff and put it all throughout her business so that she could stay open. So while you're in there buying plants, now you also can buy a dress or something like that. So and those are things that, like, huge corporations, when they have a big long plan and they have a 6-month plan, they can't just drop that 6-month plan right away. But us as small businesses, we're able to really think about, okay, how can I make this work? And what is it going to take to really pivot this business and make it work? And you just really have to be in that mindset of optimism and feeling like it's going to work.
What would you say to people who are interested in starting businesses today? There are a lot more resources for people who want to start than there were when you were starting. But for someone who might be a visionary and seeing something a little differently, the same way you did 20 something years ago, what would you say to them in terms of encouraging them to move with their spirit, to go with what their gut is telling them?
The hardest thing about starting a business is actually getting up and starting. It's the hardest thing about anything. So really just every single day, take a baby step, do something that's going to push you towards your goal. Get that EIN number, get your structure down, write your business plan, make a plan, and then just start checking stuff off the list, because that's what being an entrepreneur is all about, is creating and doing and moving forward. So you really just have to get out of that comfort zone and not be afraid, because that's what really holds us all back. I mean, I've been crippled by fear and myself, where just pivoting into when we first started, it was so easy to just kind of hide behind the computer and just, put stuff online, going about my business. But after a while, that doesn't work. People want to know who they're purchasing from. The social media became a thing, and they don't just want to see images. They want to see you talking, and they want to see, videos. And sometimes that's hard for me to do, but you have to push that fear to the side and realize that when you're uncomfortable, that's when you're growing. That's when your business is growing. And like you said, that gut instinct, it when you feel it, and you just have to keep going through, pushing forward with that.
You answered partially already, but I wanted to ask you, what are the things that are hard for you, and how do you push through it?
Sometimes it's really the social media was the hardest thing for me because social media is about kind of stripping yourself down and really showing who you are to a certain extent. You can only front on social media, but so hard, after a while, people are going to see right through that. You're going to say the wrong thing, you're going to do the wrong thing. So that's kind of hard for me. I'm I don't want to offend anybody, but, I don't want to sound too preachy, but, a lot of time I just want to tell people listen, there is no easy way to this. There's no, you can't just take a magic pill and be this, successful person. You really have to get out there and do the work. And that's scary to me to push myself out there, and show these creations. If I make a t-shirt, are they gonna like it? I don't want to look corny.
Do you think your next step, or part of your next step, or maybe you've been doing it already, is really to help people understand how to do this, how to jump in, how to start a business, how to grow it, how to be on this journey? Do you think that's going to be part of your mission, your personal mission?
It is. Because it took me a long time to realize that I have a lot of information stuck up in my head, when you're going through things, you kind of don't realize everything, all of the knowledge that you've acquired over that time period, because it's your life. So it doesn't look like this amazing thing to you because you still have so so many more dreams and aspirations. There's so much more that I want to do. So what I've done doesn't seem like anything to me. But then when I talk to people and I tell my story, I say, oh, wow, okay, yeah, that could be helpful for somebody. Like when I talk to entrepreneurs that are just starting out online, for instance, and they're saying different things, I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, yep, I did that. And this is how you could get through that. And, this is how that will work. So I do definitely want to, like help people and offer mentorship in any way that I can. Because that's one thing that I really never had was a mentor in this business world, a mentor in e-commerce. Like I never had that. So I would love to like pass that information on to someone else and help them avoid any things that I've, stumbled on.
Have you found that partnerships in general are important to your business?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You can't get anywhere without some good, solid partnerships. So, for instance, everybody that we have on the website is really a partnership. Any of the brands that we have on the website. And then also just recently for our 20th anniversary, we did a big fashion show in the lobby of the building that we're in now. The theme of the fashion show was to introduce this building as a new hub for fashion in Brooklyn. But I didn't want to say, oh, this is brand new and this is here and disregard all of the other brands that were already here doing it. So I collaborated with a couple of brands that were already existing, one being Walkerwear. She's been in the game for you heard of Walkerwear. She's been in the game forever. So I collaborated with her on the fashion show. And ever since then, like we have been like tight as like this, like just like sharing, information and just helping each other, like get through. You always need that partnership where, you could just call somebody and say, like, I'm having a terrible day because X, Y, and Z. And, just vent real quick and then they can really relate to you. So, just that in and of itself is great. But then to, be able to say, okay, you have clothing, I have clothing, we have different clothing. So let's do a photo shoot together and, like both promote the photo shoot on our website. You don't have a showroom that's open to the public, but I do. You can have a corner in the showroom where people can come and pick up or you can, display merchandise. So those partnerships are really good because it just really helps you elevate to the next level, like collectively.
Is that something you had to understand or did it just come naturally? Because I often hear, or we often see how a lot of times we will operate in isolation. We don't want people to know that we're struggling or we don't want people to know that like we're trying to figure things out. And we also, it's a thing in our community where we can do it all on our own. Mm-hmm. And so it's great to hear you talk about having support, not just in terms of business support, but being able to relate to issues, problems, concerns that you can actually share as well.
Yeah, no, I've just like really learned this. I mean, because up until now, my brother was the only person I knew that was an entrepreneur. It was just me and my brother. So I was literally operating in complete isolation for, several years. I mean, I had the brands on my website, but that's still, different than a partnership where you can call and like boo-hoo to somebody, like a personal relationship. So it took me a long, long time. And, it was really hard. And I feel like once we were able to move, what happened, was probably, I guess it was maybe about 5 years ago, the Navy Yard did, this thing called the business cohort. And they chose 10 businesses in the Navy Yard to go through this extensive MBA program. And the first class was, where do you want to go with this business? Do you want to shut your doors tomorrow? Do you want to sell this business? Do you want to grow this business? And it was such a hard class. They've since changed the whole cohort since then because we all walked out of the room like, oh my God, this is I don't even know what I want to do. I'm going out of business. So but it really put a bunch of different businesses together that were all at different stages in their business. And we also did totally different things. So it really opened my eyes to realize that no matter what size your business is, we all have the same issues, just on a different scale. So it was really good and interesting to like see people that were ahead of me, that had more employees, that had larger revenues, and be able to talk to them in a relaxed environment so that they can give me, advice and share resources and stuff. And another thing that I learned from being in that cohort was that being in isolation, I kept a lot of the processes of the business in my head. So I didn't have like a manual, or, when we get a new hire, I'm kind of like telling them what to do, on a daily basis, instead of like giving them a hardcore, workbook with our core values and how to operate. And, in doing that, I took myself out of that space of being able to create and innovate and elevate the business. When you're a business owner, you are the only one that knows the real vision of your business. Like, that's what you're in charge of: growing the business, coming up with new ideas, coming up with new things to grow the business. But when you get bogged down in, like shipping problems and, just, little stuff, crunching numbers and stuff like that, when you get bogged down in the everyday tasks, it takes a lot of your mind power away. You're not able to stay innovative and creative. And that was one of the things that I feel like really held me back early on, not realizing that, I need to give up. I need to, release these tasks to somebody so that I could stay in my lane.
So the cohort was truly valuable for you all, for the network and for the learning, which is important.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It really helped me, like, for everything. It just had me looking at things totally and completely different. And like, since then, like, I've just been immersed in like business podcasts and business books, and just like anything that's like can educate me about how to operate a business. And I'm just immersed myself in that. Cause, like I said, there's no silver bullet. There's no special pill that you can take. Like, you really have to use your brain and really think things through and take action.
One of the things from the cohort that I think is important for you to talk about is most people don't go in with, when they start a business, don't go in with a vision of where they want it to end up. You want it to be successful. You want to make lots of money, but like, do you want it to be a legacy business? Do you hope that it is sold? Like, are you still working that out? And if you don't want to say it, that's fine too. But have you figured out exactly what you think you'd like to do with this business?
I have not.
Okay.
I still like throw around different ideas. Like, of course, like, I have children, my brother has children, so I would love for it to be a legacy business where they pick up and operate it. It would be wonderful to also like sell it for $1 bazillion and like ride off into the sunset. But one thing that I did learn, whether you want to sell the business or scale the business up and still run it, you still have to operate it the same exact way. So you still have to like write down those processes, like I said, and get all of that stuff out of your head and create it in a way so that if you sell it, it's turnkey. Like, someone can come in and it's all laid out and it works. Like, you want to create your business in a way that if you take a day off, if you don't want to come in today, it'll still operate smoothly. Like, you don't want everything to cave in. So, there's a way that you have to prepare yourself for that. And that way is the same way as if, it continues on or if you sell it off, so that's where I'm at right now. Just, like putting all that together and figuring all that out. And then, wherever it takes me, that's where I'm going to go.
So what's a short-term goal for you? What can we all expect, or what would you like the listeners to know about what they can expect from your business, even in the short term?
So in the short term, we're definitely working on giving more content. So like just bringing you inside of Suite 607, that's the name of the showroom, and really giving you an inside look at what goes on inside of Suite 607, and also an inside look at our designers. So we're going to give more content like that. That's what we're working on now.
And so you'll be doing that, I guess, virtually until we open up at some point?
Yep, it's going to be virtually. We used to do like a meet the author, and with meet the author, it was more than a book signing because it was really a very intimate discussion with the author on how they really got to the point of writing the book. Because that's like a whole story, like you don't just get up and write a book. It's like a whole reason why you did it. Yeah, so we did a lot of those, and those are really successful. So we're gonna bring those back definitely in a virtual way where that's safe. Like maybe we'll have like 2 or 3 people in the studio. It was getting really it was weighing down on me because not only would I work like Monday through Friday, but then we would have events. And so it got to a point where I was working 6-7 days a week, weeks in a row. And I just remember our last event, I said, okay, this is the last event I'm going to do for a little while because I need to get my mind right and, just take a little break. I didn't know that the break was going to be a year long.
So you're the reason that we're in this mess. You called it in.
I was like, oh my goodness, I'm ready to see my customers. But we still take appointments and people do still come in, which is really interesting because unlike a store, when you go into a store, it's still very it's not personal, but when you come in here, it's almost like you're visiting a friend at their house and you're going through their closet. So, the store, people have told me some an insane, amazing stories just about themselves. And I feel like that should be a whole story.
That sounds like that could be a book that you sell as well.
Yeah. Me and my nephew, every time we're just dying laughing because it's oh my God. And some people come through with this big ball of energy and they're oh my gosh. But it's good. It's fun. It's fun.
It sounds like it is. And so I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story and sharing your expertise with everyone. We wish you a lot of success. I live in Brooklyn, so I'm going to make it a point to visit Suite 607 and stay connected. So thank you so much, Kyiesha. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Yes, you could find all of our website, all of our social media pages are at Hip Hop Closet. And you could, if anybody's out there is listening and has a question or just needs any advice, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm the one that answers all of Hip Hop Closet's DMs and everything. So, don't be afraid. Ask me a question. I'll do my best to answer it.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for offering that. That's incredible. Best of luck to you.
Business First is hosted and produced by Sonia Aline. Associate producer, Lauren Turner. Edited by Ken Johnson. Executive producers, Omar Thompson, Andrew Kalb, and Ken Johnson. Find the Business First podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, or wherever you get your podcasts. The Business First podcast is a Mean Old Lion Media and Say It Loud Network production.